nobody should even be worried about that bank any longer. You need to be worried about the next line of banks.
This company's been around 166 years. Silicon Valley Bank was around 40 years. And they're just gone overnight.
The FDIC insures 1.3% of the deposits in this country. Crazy. One more bank fails, they're busted. And this whole Ponzi scheme is going to blow up now.
It's Wealthy Wednesday. We discussed the fallout from Silicon Valley Bank's collapse, Credit Suisse, everything going on with them, and how all of these just different banking failures are affecting real estate and how it's going to affect how we do business in the long haul, knowing that people are now very skeptical. If they weren't before, they definitely are now. But if you didn't know, okay, we do this every Wednesday at 3:30 Pacific time. It's called Wealthy Wednesday. It's a live show across all platforms. And the cool thing is you end up getting guest speakers who hop on the Twitter Spaces. And so today, in this last episode, we had Grant Cardone unexpectedly hop on and give his take about this whole situation with the banking system. And it was a really good conversation. We had other amazing people jump on as well and contribute. So if you're looking to go live on these shows, make sure you show up to our Twitter Spaces, and you might get called up on stage and be on this podcast. So without further ado, let's jump into the live. We're actually going to be talking about the banking crisis. And man, it seems like every day it just gets worse. I'm just like, what the heck is going on here? Like, it's crazy how fast this has evolved. And so many people are asking me, why did this happen? What are your thoughts? How do we use this information? So I think the first thing to dive into is what exactly is even happening right now. So I'm going to give the brief rundown. I mean, Silicon Valley Bank, this company had like $80 billion worth of deposits. And like, it's not like they were even gambling money on like crazy they weren't Sam Bankman-Fried, okay?
Yeah.
and FTX just doing crazy things. Like they bought bad treasury notes that, you know, they were way too long-term and everything else. So, I mean, I guess that wasn't smart, but overall, you know, you look at it from the outside and you're like, all right, you know, it's not like they were doing nefarious things. But all of a sudden, this company that's been around for 40 years that has funded the biggest tech companies in the world, you know, gets some bad news like Thursday or Friday. I remember seeing this Peter Thiel quote saying, or this tweet saying, hey, Peter Thiel's telling all of his people to take their money out of Silicon Valley Bank. And I was like, that's kind of like backstabbing. You know, like this bank has supported them and helped start up these companies. And then all of a sudden, the next day, they're like, hey, Silicon Valley Bank's insolvent. And all these people are going to lose their money because it's not FDIC insured. And then, you know, Sunday, the Congress is like having this massive meeting on Zoom, which has never happened. And they're like, what do we do? Because if the banking system if it loses faith, basically the whole U.S. economy crumbles. Like, if you can't trust a bank, you can't trust a dollar. I've seen some of your content about the banks, and it's all going. I mean, you've been talking about the banks forever and why it's not a safe place.
How many years? How many years?
At least 10 years. At least.
Have you heard me say, leave the banks alone?
Yep. You've been saying
that
forever.
First thing I do every day. What's the first thing I do every day?
You probably empty your bank account and put in a real asset.
I look at my cash accounts and try to figure out how to get rid of cash.
Yeah.
Highly recommend it for everybody here.
The government's intentionally trying to slow down the economy, and I don't really know why. Grant, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I'm also not an inflation a fearful person. So I don't think the inflation, number one, is a real thing to most people. I think the American people will beg for inflation a year from now. Federal government will beg for it, and you will want inflation much more than you want deflation. I don't know if the 10 hats mean that you guys are conspiracy people, but is that what it means?
Yep. We were talking about all our conspiracies.
Yeah, well, the truth is most of the conspiracy people have been right.
That's what we said.
100%.
2 years. So like I just knew I didn't want to take that vaccine. So am I right or wrong? I guess I was right. I'm more right than I was wrong, clearly.
Yeah.
And look, I don't think I was just in another room where they're talking about the Silicon Valley Bank, right? I think that nobody should even be worried about that bank any longer. You need to be worried about the next line of banks.
Yeah.
The
Did you?
FDIC has 1.3%, insures 1.3% of the deposits in this country.
That's crazy.
One more bank fails, they're busted. One bank, with just one bank the size of CVB or SVB, and they're tapped out. So that means to me, just a logical, I'm just doing kind of the unscientific math here. There's no way you found the only roach in your kitchen cabinet in your kitchen, and there's no way that FDIC can possibly fund the activity, which means what? That you can't let the economy fail, so they will print money again, and they will print it at a frequency that will make COVID look small.
And if that happens, you want to be holding some assets.
Does that? You want to now? Does that cause inflation or maybe? But the reason eggs are expensive right now is because they got supply problems. Lumber prices are down, freight prices are down. I mean, pre-COVID levels. Oil prices are down. What's expensive? Rents are coming down. Mortgage applications are off 80% or some freaking crazy phenomenon. Refinancing applications off 73% or something. Car loans are delinquent at record rates. Credit card debt is at record rates. You don't use credit cards if you got money sitting around.
No.
So, did they find the only 3 banks on planet Earth that had a problem? It's hard for me to believe.
I mean, did you see, I'm sure you did, the Credit Suisse thing of like, yo, this company's been around 166 years. Silicon Valley Bank was around 40 years. And they're just gone overnight.
Yep. And I was talking about Credit Suisse last Tuesday. You look at their stock shares; it's off 85% or something. But you see, the phenomenon is that none of this is ever shown on CNBC. CNBC only shows you the winners over and over until they have to show you the losers. They rotate their stocks. All the mutual funds do it. Every major name that you guys know, they rotate to show returns. They literally set clocks and algorithms to give me, I need to hit 17.33%. So they set clocks that basically give you that. They throw out companies that they don't want on the S&P 500 anymore because they make the returns look bad. Mm-hmm. And this whole Ponzi scheme is going to blow up now. So where do you want to be? You probably don't want to be anywhere because there's going to be mass casualties. Every asset class will get destroyed. But 10 years from now, where do you want to be? That's what you guys really need to look at. At least that's what I'm looking at. I don't have all the answers here, but where do I want to be in 2032? Right. And for me, I want that concrete. I want that glass. or I'm just buying my own bullshit. One of the two.
How do we actually make money knowing this information, right? Because it's one thing to fearmonger and conspiracy theory and all this stuff. And unfortunately, this is what I see most people do, right? Because it reminds me of like the barbershop mentality. As you guys know, I'm a fan of the barbershop, right? And, people at the barbershop literally just talk for like hours and in this fashion that we're doing, and then they do nothing, right? And I'm just like, dude, what do these people talk about all day? Like they don't, they're talking about LeBron versus MJ. They're talking about, this banking thing. And like, they just talk, but they don't do anything. And unfortunately, most of the world's like that. The barbershop's just like an extreme example of that. So, instead of being this wealthy Wednesday about just talking about how, corrupt things are, let's talk about how to actually win with all this. So, I'll give my thoughts. I don't want to tell you guys what to do. I already know what to do. Javi, what do you think?
Yeah, I think number one,
because you're running my businesses, so you already know what I think.
It out. You better know. I better know.
You better know what.
Number one, I think we're doubling down on real assets, so real estate, things that are tangible. I think we're doubling down on, keeping our money in hopefully some safe places. I think we are, and also just doubling down on content, again, because that's a real asset, assuming that nothing takes assuming that these platforms don't fail, Facebook, Twitter, Meta.
But we're diversified across all of them.
Yeah,
too.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. So like even if, China,
You say China?
no, even if the Fed decides to shut down TikTok, that's why I thought of China,
Okay.
because they're talking about it. We're still on all these other platforms, and that's what I'm getting at, right? I think if there's one word, it's diversification across as many different things as possible. So we're in real estate, we're on social media, and we're just going to keep our heads down and keep doing what we're doing.
My strategy, at least as far as the real estate market go, changes when hey, if we're going to flip, if we're going to wholesale, if we're going to kind of turn on the gas, or if we're going to kind of let off the gas. I watch the markets and the interest rates on that front. I'll tell you, at least when it comes to real estate, okay, in the short term, I am very bullish, and I've been saying this I've been saying this since January. I just did a training showing that inventory all across the country has been dropping dramatically. And here in Las Vegas, it's dropping very quickly. We are turning back into a seller's market, which is crazy because, we were in an extreme buyer's market for the last 6 months of 2022. Now we're back in a seller's market, and people are like, well, how are we in a seller's market? Interest rates are so high. The tech people are losing their jobs and all this. And it's like, well, yeah, that's one aspect of the economy. And those tech stocks are going to get crushed from that. But here's the thing, real estate, not every industry is the same, right? Just because crypto goes down does not mean real estate goes down. Just because stocks go down does not mean real estate goes down. And in real estate, we're entering this weird era where I don't know if we've ever seen it before. In the last crash in 2008, there was no hedge funds or these companies buying up single family homes. It was not an asset class they invested in. Well, after this big crash, these hedge funds started to look at it, and they were like, well, if stocks are kind of risky, and real estate is so undervalued right now because it's crashed so much, why don't we just buy these real assets that we can just rent out? And, we know they're going to be around. They're not like a company, even like Silicon Valley Bank, that could go bankrupt in 3 days. Like, these are real assets that for the next 100 years, they're going to be sitting right there. And yeah, you're going to have some maintenance and all that, but you can 1000% guarantee they're going to appreciate. They're going to give you tax advantages. They're going to cash flow. It's real estate's as safe as a bet as it gets. And
when things do crash, I don't want to cut you off, but it's such a longer process, right? Like, it's not like you said, where people can lose money in 3-4 days. If a real estate market is going to crash, it's going to take months, if not years, in my opinion, to really hit rock bottom. So you got a lot of time to react and recover.
100%.
Yeah.
And so even with this last crash, prices dropped 10% over a 6-month span. And then now they're already correcting. And so it's like real estate's so slow moving that in the short term, right, we already see it bouncing up. Real estate for me, short term, is going to be a great investment, whether you're flipping, wholesaling. Long term, it's going to be a great investment for rentals. It will always be a great investment long term because you go look at any market 5 years ago, 10 years ago, real estate was a good bet, right? So, I love real estate. It offers the tax advantages, the cash flow, the appreciation, the principal pay down. None of these other things offer it. It offers the best leverage that's actually like safe leverage versus a lot of leverage these guys in stock trading take and all this stuff. So big believer in real estate. And as Javi said, our goal is to, continue to flip, continue to wholesale. We want to buy big commercial buildings. We're all in on that. So real estate's always going to be the backbone of everything we do. Okay. Second thing that we're doing is, on the business side, right? So real estate's how I made my wealth. Businesses are how I'm going to get to the next level, right? And so we've got lots of different businesses. We've got, obviously with WealthCon, that's part of our education company, Wealthy World, where, we've got education for real estate investing, for social media content, for general business, for, all these things. And we're building out even more. And so it's like for me, that's a great business. We have our tax business. We've got, my NFT project, Tykes. We've got a bunch of different things. And with that, we're pretty diversified on all these businesses we have. We just launched a new business a couple of weeks ago called Pineda Media, where we're editing content for entrepreneurs and giving them just full scale service for running their social media for them. And so that comes from coaching them throughout filming sessions, editing their videos, posting it for them, and just kind of repeating that process over and over again. And so when I look at it, yeah, there are certain businesses like tech that could be hit really hard during this time, but when you're diversified, things end up being better. So we're in that position, and I'm grateful we are, but not everyone's in that position. So I'm just telling you guys where we're at currently. But beyond the current businesses we have, one big thing that we're doing, we're going to be buying businesses and partnering with people, right? So I've kind of hinted at this, and we're going to be doing a lot of it with Tykes and everything else. So I'm excited to go get a lot of these businesses that maybe are going to go through a rough time during this time, and they're going to need a bailout. They're going to need somebody to come in and help them pivot. And I think we're going to get a lot of opportunities like that.
What about, we talked about tech, but the advancements in AI right now have been incredible. And the opportunities that I think AI is going to open for people. We see people that have no coding experience being able to learn how to code within, a day or two because of AI. I think there's going to be some incredible advancements for people just because of AI.
The job shortages are going to be in trade workers, not necessarily programmers, and these white collar jobs for the first time are going to be the ones that are going to be displaced. Usually the last technological revolution was, these blue collar workers in the factories. And so it'll be very interesting to see what happens in the next few months, next couple of years.
Yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg said that people that work at the office get more done. I'm like, wow, you're such a smart guy.
So they're not going to work harder in the metaverse that he's trying to build?
I'm like, what research project did you guys do? How much money did you spend to find that out?
Millions.
Stupid, man. Come on.
Nobody works
hard. Nobody works harder on their own than they do when they're surrounded by other people. You're just going to perform better. If you're around other performers.
Exactly. That's what we're trying to do here. We used to be okay with a remote culture. We're trying to bring everybody in-house if we can.
I've seen the culture at your guys' sales floor, Grant, and it's hard to replicate that, just everyone by themselves at home on Zoom.
Yeah, it's impossible.
Yep. For everyone listening, I'd be curious in the comments. We're streaming live on YouTube and Instagram, and we're on Twitter Spaces and all these things. I'm curious, what are you guys going to do about this, right? Are you going to just sit around and be like the barbershop talk and, do nothing about it and just say, oh, well, the government's corrupt and, they're going to print a bunch of money and, I'm going to lose my job and there's nothing I can do about it? Or are you going to actually take advantage of this and say, all right, well, these are the rules that these guys are playing by. How do we build a business or an investment strategy that's going to capitalize on all of this? And, for me, I'm not trying to talk about it. I'm trying to find people who are doers and people that are going to, come alongside of me and make money together. There's so much that, I just think there's so many opportunities that are going to come from this.
I have a question as somebody who isn't as maybe liquid or well off. With interest rates where they are now, for somebody that's kind of starting out, what would be your advice, or what would be something they could do, because interest rates are scary right now. So what could they do to maybe look to get involved and look to diversify even with interest rates at 6+%?
For me, if you're not if you don't have money right now in capital, obviously you're not investing, right? So for me, you got to go learn a high paying skill. And I don't care what that skill is. You could become a great salesperson and make money that way. You could go develop, we talked about AI and tech. You could go develop your coding and all those things and start providing services that way. You could learn to go run ads for other people. You could learn to go flip houses. And there's lots of different high paying skills out there that you can learn. You can go make content and go become a creator. But you gotta learn some kind of skill. And so I wouldn't even be looking at interest rates as even like, I wouldn't even care about interest rates one bit if I was that person.
Agreed.
I would just be like taking every money I've got and dumping it back into myself to learn a skill that's going to make me a lot of money. Because your skills will never go away, right? Like you have your skills, you know, nobody can take what you've learned. And, you know, regardless of what the market's doing, you've got those skills. And so it's like when I look at what the market's doing and the interest rates, well, I got all these skills I've developed from all these years of investing in real estate. And, you know, I can kind of figure out what I want to do to navigate it. I can figure out how I want to pivot my businesses based on what's going on, because of skills I've developed, not because I got lucky with, you know, one investment.